Hooty hoo, all my stock market gamblers. Welcome today. I'm Tall Mike. So glad you're here. Well, I hope everybody had a good weekend. What's going on in the markets? Well, we had that big drop, right? But now we got this counter trend rally. But I think this is getting ready to come to an end, right? I think we're going to get another leg down. I think the S&P is going to come down to 5,000. That's where the 200-day moving average is. And I think it's got to drop to there before we bounce higher. I do not think we're going to get back above the 20-day until we come down and test the 200-day moving average. That's just my take. You're going to see a lot of volatility in the marketplace as this plays out. Right now we had that counter trend up, had the big drop, counter trend up. Expect another leg down. Just my take. I know the Moon Boys don't agree with that, but that's the way I see it. So, all right, let's get over to an article I read the other day. Okay, so I was reading and it said that real estate, the housing market has reached $50 trillion. $50 trillion. Now, that's interesting. United States housing market has a market cap of $50 trillion. Now, if everybody sold their house, I guess we could pay off the federal debt. But it doesn't work that way. You see, what you've got is a treadmill of debt pushing these houses higher, pushing the bubble bigger. The bigger the bubble, the bigger the burst. Now, we're getting into the record. Right around $50 trillion is what they estimate. Now, a year ago, there were 4 cities that had a market cap of housing value over $1 trillion. Okay, that was a year ago. Now this year, there's 8 cities. 8 cities have a market cap over $1 trillion. But the whole market cap of the U.S. housing market is $50 trillion. Now they don't want to see that come down. They don't want to see that crash. Why? Well, because of property taxes, right? The bigger they blow the bubble, the more money they take in property taxes. So $50 trillion, I mean, you can do the arithmetic. Let's just call it 1%, right? I mean, well, I don't know, what, $500 billion in property taxes every year? I mean, that's a lot of money, right? Okay, and they don't want that to come down. But you see, when the bubble pops, there's going to be a lot of pain. A lot of pain. You see, all the debt that keeps this inflated up, it's pretty much just a debt bubble. When the debt market goes, the housing market will come down with it. Now, $50 trillion, that sounds good. That sounds really good until you start to realize that the dollar is becoming worthless. It's becoming worthless. Maybe they can get that to 100 trillion. Maybe they can get it to a quadrillion, right? A quadrillion. The housing market's got a market cap of a quadrillion. Because see, the dollar keeps going away, keeps going down and down and down. Now look I believe we're all going to become millionaires and most of us are going to become billionaires, but none of us are going to be able to afford to pay our bills because our bills are going to be going up so much more than our net worth. Yes, you'll be a millionaire. Most of you will be billionaires, but you won't be able to pay your bills because the dollar is going down and down. So this $50 trillion market cap is not really all it's cracked up to be. You see, it's just the banks loaning a bunch of money. The more debt they can loan, the bigger they can blow the bubble. You see, there's no real money out there anymore. Real money being gold and silver. That's not out there. What's out there is digits on a screen. Yes, it's backed by something, backed by debt. That's debt for one person. That's an asset for another person. Okay, so the person that owns the house, they got the debt. It's an asset for the banks. But let's talk about the banks. Now, nobody's talking about them, right? I mean, these banks are going to fall over like dominoes pretty soon, and the mainstream media doesn't even talk about it. A year ago, we had that Silicon Valley Bank problem, and everybody thinks the problem's fixed. This problem is just getting started. It's nowhere close to fix. You know that Warren Buffett, he dumped most of his Bank of America shares, billions of dollars worth of Bank of America shares dumped on the market. Why? Warren's a smart guy. He sees what's coming. He's building up his cash reserves, right? $200 billion. Why? Because he knows the stock market's going to come in by 50%. You see, the stock market on his indicator, which is 200%, the value of the stock market compared to the GDP, 200%. That's a record high. high. Normal's 100%, so it's going to drop by 50%. But here's the thing. We're probably going to overshoot to the downside when it happens, so it could be a bigger drop than just 50% in the stock market. Could be 60, could be 80%, but Warren sees the writing on the wall. Dumping his bank stocks. Very smart man. He sees the banking system very fragile here. I don't think the banking system's going to make it, personally. I think they're going to start to fall over. Don't worry. JP Morgan, they're going to buy all the good assets. You know who gets stuck with the bad assets? Me and you. We get the bad assets, right? I mean, the ones that are losing money, we have to bail them out. The taxpayer gets the bad assets. JP Morgan picks up the good assets, pennies on the dollar, and they get bigger and bigger and bigger. Too big to fail, right? Is JP Morgan too big to fail? Most people would say yes. They're going to sacrifice a bank, a big bank, and the one they're going to sacrifice, it looks like, is Bank of America. And somebody called up Warren and said, Warren, we're going to sacrifice Bank of America. You may want to sell your stock while you still can. And Warren dumped all his stock. Okay, Warren's got the inside track, right? But these banks are going down because they have a lot of problems. They have delinquencies of people holding mortgages. Those delinquencies are going up. People holding car loans, those delinquencies are going up. Credit card delinquencies, they're skyrocketing, right? Why? Because nobody has money. You see, we're living in a consumer-based economy, right? Where the consumer is responsible for 70% of the GDP. Now, they have to continue to spend money, but they're tapped out. Their savings is wiped out, so they need to get what's known as credit, right? They need to have their credit cards increase the credit limits on them so they can go out and spend more, okay? And this will keep the banks afloat a little bit longer if we can blow up the debt bubble a little bit bigger. Now, you see, I harp on the government. That's 35 trillion in debt, but that's not all the debt. That's not close to all the debt. The states have debt. They're all in debt. Corporate debt's at a record high. Credit cards is at a record high. Every form of debt out there is at a record high. We're just a treadmill of debt. Now, can we keep going on the treadmill? I suppose we can a little bit farther, a little bit longer, right? I mean, maybe we got a few years left. Maybe we have, I don't know, I say less than 3. That's what I would bet on, less than 3 years. A lot of people say 5. Some people say we still have 10 years left. Now, it's possible, but I don't think the consumer is going to be able to survive that long. You see, what problem is inflation. Inflation's coming. Now, I know the Fed, they're going to cut rates because inflation came down from 9% down to 3%, and they're waving the victory flag. Now, I know inflation's not at 3%. You know inflation's not at 3%. I mean, it's probably up around 8-10% still. But once they start to lower that rate, you're going to see that 3% number on their own numbers. You're going to see it shoot back up to 9% and surpass 9%. Inflation comes in waves. We had the first wave hit 9%, right? The next wave, it's going to top 9%. It's going to happen when the pivot comes, when the Fed starts to cut rates to save the businesses. A lot of businesses are going bankrupt right now. A lot of them going out of business. A lot of the zombie companies can't make it with rates up here at 5%. They can't make it. You see, a zombie company doesn't bring in enough money to pay for their own interest on their debt, right? So they have to borrow. Now, they were borrowing at 1, 2, and 3%. Now they have to borrow 4, 5, 6%. They have no choice. They can't do it, and some banks won't give them more money. So if they can't get more money, they have to go out of business. What does that mean? That means job losses now, not for you, not for me, but a lot of people are going to lose their jobs. There's going to be a lot of pain out there, right? There's going to be a lot of suffering, and these people are not going to be able to make their obligations of their card payment, their credit card payment. And then comes the mortgage payment. They're not going to be able to make it. Now, what's going to happen? Well, eventually, the bank's going to give them a choice. You can give us back the house, or we're going to foreclose on you. Now, when they foreclose on them, they put the house back on the market. The foreclosures are actually going up. I've been contacted by a couple of banks. They want me to get on board with them so that they can hand me the properties when they take the properties back. People are starting to hand the properties back to the bank. Why? Because they're underwater already, which is amazing to me, right? I mean, we got prices pretty close to where Billy Bob got out at. I mean, houses are still high. Why are people underwater already? Well, because they borrow, they didn't pay, they borrow, they didn't pay, they get a HELOC, and the HELOC program. Now you can go Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac. They're coming out with $2 trillion in HELOC loans for you. So you can get a little longer rope to hang yourself with, right? I mean, this is really scary stuff. We're a debt-based society, and we used to be a wealth-based society, but we're not anymore. We used to produce things in this country. We used to manufacture things and create wealth. We were based on wealth. We don't have wealth now. We have debt. We're a debt-based society, and we need a lot more debt to keep the thing going, to keep the whole ball of wax going. Otherwise, everything comes tumbling down. Now, how do they get more debt? What do they do? Well, they lead us to war. War is great for debt, right? Because you got to pay for the war. So that creates more debt. So they're going to push us in the direction of war. Now, we're paying for 2 wars already, but don't be surprised if we start to have a 3rd war and maybe even a 4th war. War is going to be necessary because we need debt. We need a lot more debt to blow the bubble up bigger. If we stop getting debt, the whole thing comes crashing down. So we got to get more and more in debt. 35 trillion is not enough. 50 trillion is not going to be enough. 100 trillion is not going to be enough. They're going to need to go bigger and bigger. There's no way out at this point. You see, the crash of a lifetime is not stoppable at this point, and that's what makes me very sad. Even if you got the right people in office, I think it's too late. I don't think it's really going to matter. Now, call me negative. I know, okay, all you think AI is going to come out and save us. It's going to make us productive again, and I hope you're right. I hope we can pay off this debt, but nobody wants to. Nobody even talks about it. Not one politician in this race has even talked about balancing the budget, let alone running a little bit of a surplus. A little surplus doesn't sound that difficult to do to me, right? I mean, you just got to balance the budget. We blow money away like you wouldn't believe. I mean, we stop paying for these wars, maybe we would have a little surplus. If we start giving all the money away to the newcomers, the ones coming across the southern border, maybe we could run a surplus. Maybe we could start chipping away at the debt. But nobody has an interest in this. No politician can even say that because he would never win with that platform, right? He's got to come out and say, we're going to get stimulus checks. We're going to spend money. We're going to do everything you want to do. And we don't care what it costs because we can go farther into debt because we got that little thing called the Federal Reserve. They're going to buy all of our debt, right? Now, I think we should also get rid of the Federal Reserve. I think that'd be a step in the right direction. Now, slowly but surely, we can chip away at the Federal Reserve and make them smaller and smaller and smaller. How do you take away the power of the Federal Reserve? You do not allow one more dollar to be printed. As soon as you don't print one more dollar, all of the central banks go away. The Federal Reserve goes away because their only power is in the printing of money. If you make a law, you cannot print any more money, it goes away. Things start to get back to normal. We start to get back to sound money. I call sound money gold and silver. A lot of you love Bitcoin. More power to you. I hope it works out for you. It's back to 60,000. We're having a good, Bitcoin rally here, right? We were down at 50. Now we're at 60. Maybe you get back to 70. I don't know. A lot of people think it's going to 70 million. I suppose it's possible. You got people paying 70,000. Maybe you could find someone to pay 70 million a Bitcoin. I don't know, but I like sound money. I like my money honest and anonymous. And that's what gold and silver is. It's honest money and it's anonymous money. Nobody knows you have it when you buy it, when you hold it in your hand. When you hold the physical, that's what I do. I hold the physical, right? It's what is real money. And that we've gotten away from that in our country. Constitution says gold and silver is the only thing that is money. Not this currency that we keep printing into infinity. That's not real money. We've got away from the Constitution. I know that the politicians don't want to follow the Constitution. I get that. That takes away their power. You see, the politicians were not supposed to have the power. And once you get back to sound money, that brings the power back to the people. The people would have the power. That's what the Constitution was for. People were not supposed to become career politicians and stay there their whole lives and become multimillionaires by gambling inside information on the stock market. Our, forefathers, they'd be rolling over in their graves if they saw how this turned out. This is a failed experiment. It's a failed experiment, and it's called Keynesian economics. It's where the government fiddles with everything, right? It's not the free markets, which is the Austrian economics, which is the real money, which is the free markets. They decide the price. They discover what the price is. We have no price discovery. We don't know what the prices are supposed to be. Look, it is a 1,200 square foot home supposed to sell for $3 million. I don't think so. That's just my take, but that's where we're at right now because we bought $3 trillion worth of mortgages. We keep interest rates at zero for 14 years. We blow the bubble as big as we can, and we can't let that come down because it's at $50 trillion, right? We need the tax base off of that $50 trillion, and that's why they want to keep this inflated up here. You get back to sound money, things will come back to normal again. It'll solve about 90% of our problem, but this is just my take. If you like this stuff, give me the thumbs up. Why not? Get out there, everybody. Enjoy the day. Punch the subscribe button. We'll talk again later in the week. Bye-bye now.